Oh, hello. Thank you for staying with us here on the AM show. Time for us to talk AM Talk. Well, this is where we discuss some of the big issues confronting our nation. There's some topical subjects in the last 24 hours, including Dr. Dominic Ayini's response to the Chief Justice and the General Legal Counsel. We will delve into that issue. My guest to help with the conversations, Mr. Ebenezer Oklite-Telabi is Member of Parliament for Lower Manya Krobo. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We will also be joined, well, he is a ranking member on the Environment Committee. He's on the Gender and Children Committee as well, and member of the Selection Committee of Parliament. We will have a former member of Parliament who is now Eastern Regional Minister, Seth Champong. He's the former chair of the Defense and Interior Committee. One of the things we'll be discussing is security. There is a report out there that puts Ghana as second most peaceful country in sub-Saharan Africa. This is in spite of all the insecurities that some people have raised in recent times. So we're going to put both side by side. And that is on the table this morning. So do I have Mr. Seth Champong, who's joining us via Zoom, connecting with us? Not yet. When we do connect, we will let you know. So in the meantime, well, Seth, thank you for being here. I want us to start on the back of that press conference addressed by the General Secretary of your political party, the National Democratic Congress. And this is on the back of the invitation of one of their own, a former Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayini. I want us to take a listen to General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu-Nketia.
Dr. Ayini, who was part of the legal team of former President Mahama during the 2020 election petition, is said to have questioned the independence of the judiciary due to the manner the Supreme Court adjudicated the election petition. This was during a forum on presidential election petitions and their impact on Africa's democracy. For the NDC General Secretary, the comments by Dr. Ayini were honest, well-reasoned, and well-researched.
He stayed within the bounds of professionalism. He was neither scurrilous nor scandalous. For him to be accused by the Chief Justice of disparaging Ghana's judiciary over these tempered and justified comments is not only bizarre and unfortunate, but speaks volumes about the Chief Justice himself. Our Constitution and laws protect the integrity and independence of the judiciary and not the sensibilities of judges. Judicial vanity is a threat to justice.
Well, if you check myjoyonline.com this morning, you would get the response by Dr. Dominic Ayini, and I just want to read portions of that letter in response to the invitation on myjoyonline.com. He says, with all due respect to His Lordship, the Chief Justice, I wish to state that I stand by the opinion I expressed at the said roundtable discussion. I am firmly convinced that the opinion I expressed neither imperiled the independence of the judiciary, nor did it cause any actual or potential harm to the reputation of the individual justices, nor did it cause any actual or potential harm to the reputation of the individual justices who sat on the case. He goes on also to say, on the contrary, I was engaged in constructive criticism based on my reading of the unanimous judgment of the Supreme Court in exercise of my constitutionally protected right to freedom of speech. I did so in good faith without malice or falsehood or recklessness, and in furtherance of my responsibility to our country as a lawyer and an academic. It's an 11-page response, and it's on myjoyonline.com. If you have time, you can visit the page and read the response, which is titled Conduct of Dr. Dominic Ayini. So I want to start with you in Mr. Taylor, because you're here, and when we connect with Mr. Seti Champong, who will be joining us via Zoom, he's the Eastern Regional Minister, we will bring him into the conversation. Some people have said this is not a political party matter. After all, Dr. Ayini is a lawyer, he belongs to the profession, and this is a professional matter of possible misconduct. So why does the party jump in as if he needs help?
Well, thank you very much. Good morning. Once more. I think that Dr. Ayini was at the Search Forum in his capacity as our member on the Committee on Constitutional and Legal matters, insofar as Parliament is concerned, right? And the chairman of that committee. And Dr. Ayini is in Parliament on the ticket of the NDC. And I'm very sure that CDD wouldn't have invited him if he wasn't the chairman of the said committee. So to start with, he was representing the committee too as a member of Parliament, on the ticket of the NDC. So if in the process, some concerns are raised, I think the party has a duty to also, support his view. But at the end of the day, Ayini spoke on the issues that arose insofar as the judgment that was given at the Supreme Court, which has to do with the NDC. And he was part of the legal committee that pursued that very issue at the Supreme Court. And therefore, it is not out of place for members of Parliament. Our side has also come out with a press release. We did a press conference in support of Ayini's views as an academic, as a citizen of this country, and as a lawyer. The party, has the right to also do same. So I don't see anything wrong. That doesn't mean that he needs help. We also have to show solidarity because we believe in what the gentleman said, at the Search Forum.
Isn't this, if you like, pitching the political party, the NDC, against the judiciary because the Chief Justice heads that institution?
You see, pitching the party against the judiciary, is that what you're saying? I don't think so. I think that nobody is above criticism. Nobody. So
why wouldn't you just allow the process to continue?
Which process?
I mean, they've invited him. They put the issues before him. He's responded.
But did you read the invitation? Did you read the invitation? There was the invitation was very judgmental, that he has committed a certain crime and must, answer. He must be investigated. Right? And we believe that nobody is above, there's no profession in this country which is above criticism. Because, unless they believe that they don't make mistakes, then even in our law courts, right, there are instances where, judgments are passed, other judges, critique it and then overturn the same. You understand? So what is wrong with, if it is somebody like me who is not a lawyer, right, criticizing, then they might say, okay, just, out of maybe ignorance or whatever. This is somebody who is an academic, and how do we really, improve on, as far as our laws are concerned, without, subjecting them to proper, criticisms. And when you listen to Ayine, whatever he said wasn't new. It is something that, if you go out right now and interview a lot of people who have been following proceedings at our courts and things like that, a lot of people who about the same view. So what it means is that instead of, singling out Ayini and trying to gag him or whatever, the judiciary must put his house in order.
Yeah, it was. How does that amount to gagging?
Certainly, because if
they are duly investigating the matter and he's been asked to also say his side of it.
No, what are they?
It's a fair process.
What are they investigating? Is it not true that the judges were unanimous in all that all the processes insofar as appeals, whatever, everything? Is it not true? It's a fact that everything about the what do you call it, the review went one way.
So I guess the bigger issue is the questioning of their independence.
Yes, no, I guess that's what's prompting this, isn't it? Can we read? Can you read what he said?
Before you continue, we're going to pull that up. Let's say good morning to Mr. Sadi Champo because he's joined us via Zoom. Let's say good morning to his Eastern Regional Minister and a former Member of Parliament. If you can hear me, sir, good morning.
Good morning, Mama V, and good morning to my brother, Honorable Taylor, Member of Parliament for Lower Manya.
Great, good to have you. Maybe before you continue, let me, Mr. Champa, I don't know how much of this conversation you've been listening to so far, but we're just on our first subject, on the Dr. Dominic Ayene's issue and the NDC's press conference yesterday. I was just asking if this is an NDC fight.
No, I don't believe this is an NDC fight. I understand that Dr. Ayene's initial commentary was in a matter that the flag bearer, the former President of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, when he had petitioned the Supreme Court on the results of the last held 2020 general elections in his capacity as a candidate. And the political party he belonged to decided to offer him support and made some members of the political party come forth to stand in his stead to offer prosecution, to stand in as prosecution witnesses. As thereof, one of the counsels that supported the team, the legal team, was Honorable Dr. Ayine, Dominic. And unfortunately, some emotions came up, and Dominic, the gentleman that I know, when he spoke at the time, I noticed clearly that he spoke on emotions at the time, because the Dominic I've lived in Parliament with, that I used to work with in Parliament, wouldn't do and commit such blunders. And humbly, he was led in counsel by his colleagues who eventually got the Supreme Court to pardon him and purge him of all sins, if I may be permitted to use such words, on that at that material moment. And whatever is happening subsequently is a professional conversation. I think we need to develop our jurisprudence and ensure that our country really enjoys the best of the common law practice. I don't think any person on the bench will do anything untoward to Dominic. They respect him as a former Attorney General, Deputy as such, and a leader of the bar. And if you listen clearly to the commentary of members of the bench of the Supreme Court of Ghana at the time, you clearly would know the level of respect they hold for Ayine. Some of these things are procedures and processes. And if we allow politicking to stay out of clear principles and we employ principles, we build a better nation, a sound and found strong nation for ourselves. And for me, this is how I would consider the conversation. I definitely, and you may, if you may recall, you realize when Dominic appeared, Honorable Dr. Ayine appeared before the Supreme Court, you saw the support he got from both parties, which were for and against in respect of the petition, and all solidarized with him. I believe in this circumstance, certainly conversations are ongoing. We are all the same people, all one country. Yeah. Let us not politicize every matter that comes up before us. Let us, some of the time, allow the system to also prune itself and wean itself some bad practices. Yes, members of the society, and in particular, learned councils, are allowed to criticize the Supreme Court or court decisions, but it should be done in a fashion, it should be done in a manner. Even in your practice, your code of conduct do not permit you to do certain things. So when you err, that's why we have disciplinary committees set up in all bodies. So we all checkmate ourselves. I don't want us to raise this to a bar of politicking and politicizing. It is a matter that we just have to all follow keenly and, when necessary, criticize appropriately. But it should not be an NDC versus the judiciary matter. We shouldn't.
But if you invite Mr. Champo, if you invite a person who was part of the legal team of a political party pursuing a matter, for their candidates in an election, then you invite the whole political party, because in that instance he wasn't himself.
When he appeared before the Supreme Court, if our images will capture exactly the happening on the day, how many of the party members were in the courtroom to offer him support at the time when he was being led in counsel? The men that led him in counsel were not NDC. They didn't come there as NDC party lawyers. It was clearly a professional breach that the profession demands certain practices to go through. And that is the position from where I speak. I wouldn't want to make this a political banter. We've made most conversations in this country. We color it. And at the end of the day, we don't get the real substance and the input that we must derive out of such conversations. That is the position I come from. Okay. We have to take certain subjects at the face value and then critique it, analyze it, and come up with some useful suggestions that will shape this nation. If we make every conversation in this country so political, we will not develop this country the way we want to develop it. And we are so quick to run our mouths that officialdom is not doing so well. Everybody criticizes one another, and that's little about critiques. We only run our mouths and go home to sleep and do not get actions. And that is my only concern and worry for our country.
Okay, so Mr. Telabi, you wanted me to read portions of what Dr. Ayini is alleged to have said. And yes. So this is picked from myjournline.com. And this is as he appeared as a panel on a roundtable discussion, organized by the CDD. And this is a direct quote. Adjudication is the process of accountability. So for me, it is okay to dismiss an application brought by a petitioner for one relief or the other, whether substantive or procedural. But it is another thing to fail to apply the rules of procedure in a manner that enhances the accountability process. So, at the end of the day, the petition actually dampened my hopes with respect to the independence of the judiciary and its ability to hold the Electoral Commission in particular accountable in election petitions. There are more of his submissions. If you go to myjournline.com, you can appreciate that better. For instance, he said, I expected the Supreme Court to apply faithfully the rules of procedure too, in terms of adducing evidence, proof the petitioner's case, and so on. What we saw was a Supreme Court that was constantly putting hurdles in the way of the petitioner in terms of adducing evidence to prove the petitioner's case. I am sure for ordinary Ghanaians or the electorate generally, the fact that the Supreme Court judges, all 9 of them, on almost every application was unanimous in rejecting and dismissing the case of the petitioner was very telling in terms of the open-mindedness or otherwise of the justices as far as the petition was concerned, and for me as a lawyer, unquote. So amongst many other things, some of the things that Dr. Dominic Ayini said during this roundtable discussion, it was on elections, by the way, and this was after the court had decided in the petition, the issue that was brought before them.
And then certainly this is after the court has, pronounced judgment, and therefore this was not going to influence, anything so far as the judgment was concerned. These are commentaries after, judgment, was passed. And as a lawyer, and as somebody who, believes in developing our legal systems, I mean, he's an academic. And therefore, his views as, pertains to this should also be heard. Should be heard, because whatever judgment that came up, the judges also, opined. I mean, they are the opinion of the judges. They believe that whatever requests that were brought forward by, the applicants, right, were not proper. That is their view. That was the view at the time. And during the process, Ayini made some comments, and that will be, is believed to be, contentious because the case was, pending, and therefore any utterances that could influence or that could, influence the course of judgment is said to be contentious, and that is why he apologized at the time. But after judgment has been given, I believe that we all have the right, to, and when you listen to what he said, or you read what he said, I don't think that, it taints, the reputation of the charges.
So,
not at all. I don't believe
this question again. I mean, what's the big deal? After all, it's a petition to investigate statement allegedly made by Dominic Ayine. And this is what the Judicial Secretary wrote. That's the title of what was written. So it's just an investigation.
Read.
Okay, so let's go to details of that as you've invited me to read.
Yes, you read.
The attention of His Lordship, the Chief Justice, has been drawn to statements allegedly made by Dr. Dominic Ayine during a panel discussion on presidential election petitions and their impacts on Africa's democracy. During this discussion, Dr. Ayini questioned the independence of the judiciary due to the manner the Supreme Court adjudicated the 2020 election petition. According to him, the Supreme Court's failure to apply the rules of procedure, as well as the consistent and continuous dismissal of the petitioner's application or reliefs, were the basis of his assertion. Wow. These comments are made against the backdrop of the Supreme Court discharging Dr. Ayini on a charge of contempt for similar comments made against members of the Supreme Court during the election petition hearing. Dr. Ayini apologized profusely when he appeared before the court on the contempt charge and admitted to having made comments which were unbecoming of a lawyer of his standing and a former Deputy Attorney General. His Lordship, the Chief Justice, therefore finds his alleged disparaging comment totally unacceptable and would like you to investigate this matter further. And he's attached copy of an extract from an article published on myjournline.com. That's where I picked the initial quotes from Dr. Ayini's contribution, and this was signed by Justice Cynthia Pamela Addo, the Judicial Secretary. So this is the invitation.
Yes, but you see the conclusion. He said they find it what?
Disparaging.
Seriously.
But you must have a basis for your complaints, shouldn't you?
You see, but the reference was made to what he said during the court proceedings. That was during when the case was being heard. And now, a forum provided by NGOs and Parliament invited to make comments. I mean, to help in improving our legal, system. And therefore, comments made by, persons like Ayini should not be taken, that far.
Okay.
You understand?
Just the last, and I'll give you the last say on this, Mr. Champon. And away from the earlier question I asked in terms of the political party, the NDC, jumping in on this. There are many other persons, including lawyers, even from those who are also part of CDD, the organizers of this forum, who say that this is purely, or this was an academic exercise, and the Chief Justice should not be concerned. Criticizing the work of the judiciary is something that has been done from way back. There are so many quotes that others are putting out there, harsher criticism of the judiciary in the past. So this shouldn't be an issue.
I see, let me just, before he comes in, when I am even surprised that Ayini has been isolated, and that is the cause of concern, because other lawyers, it wasn't like Ayini was just allowed to just, say whatever. Others also criticized what Ayini said and had their views. You understand? Others had view,
you mean on the same
platform.
panel?
Yeah, that's right, the same platform. Yes.
Sure.
Others. So it was a discussion, which was, I mean, it wasn't like Ayini.
In fact, there are people who disagreed with him then who are coming out now to say that this invitation is unnecessary.
Unnecessary, certainly.
All right, Mr. Champon, let's hear you.
Thank you very much. Do you see where such a beautiful conversation is leading all of us? Clearly, the reason why I insist that my friends in the NDC political party shouldn't see this as a politicized subject. Honorable Dominic's points were made on an academic platform.
Yeah.
There were several witnesses to that conversation that he made. He's made his own inferences out of a decision from the position of the law, and a person who was part of the representation for the petitioner. And those were his views. It is subject to the governing body of our law system in Ghana, the General Legal Council. If they so wish, I don't think that our judiciary or the General Legal Council is just full or filled with people who are so biased. In the same way that all individuals are speaking and expressing their mind independently, which is a foundation from our constitution, freedom of expression. It is enshrined. Our fundamental rights are enshrined and embodied and supported by our constitution. So I understand this from the position of the law that let us allow the procedures and the systems to work. I do not and I will not try my best here this morning to get into the minds of the Chief Justice or get into the minds of the Judiciary Council or the Legal Council or get into the mind of my friend and brother Dominic. Let us all see this subject as a clear procedure that we should go through the motions. And like you rightly said, co-panelists have come on the heels of the program to express an alternative opinion, even when they held a different concern at the time that Dominic spoke. That should tell you how we are as a people in this country. And so we should continue to encourage this rather useful spirit of citizenship and camaraderie amongst checking on our fellow colleagues and having that fellow feeling spirit, which I believe must be the principle that leads Ghana's conversation all the time. I must say that if any person disagrees with me, Mama V, on this conversation we are holding, the persons are freely allowed to make their commentary, but they should make them within the confines of the set rules that guide all our conversations. Yeah. We should know. Yeah. Dominic is not a mean character.
No.
Dominic is a lecturer, a teacher of law. Yeah. He's not just a member of parliament or a former deputy minister of state. He teaches the subject and is respected as such. And he knows the principles upon which he stood to speak. He's going to advance same arguments. This is how we develop our law. Yeah. This is how we develop our jurisprudence. Yeah. Let us allow systems to work. It is good that all of us are speaking to the conversation. But hey, let's watch it and see how it goes.
Okay.
My worry is the fact that references are being made to what he said during the court proceedings, which I think is unfair. In
terms of him owning up and saying that,
yes,
I said things that I shouldn't have said, and so I am sorry for that.
In that context, because there was a case, ongoing, you understand. No judgment has been passed, nothing has been said, no conclusions have been made. Now they have concluded. You see, and the interesting thing is that not too long ago, there was a program where I heard the current Chief Justice critiquing seriously a judgment that was passed, this Riakuto sort of...
the famous Riakuto
that's right.
Case.
Critiquing it, you understand? I'm sure those judges, if they are alive, right, will not be offended. Will not be offended. We should allow, the system to develop. I mean, it is only, accepting our faults, allowing people to criticize us, constructively, though, that can help us, really build our systems very well. Look, it happens in every profession. It happens in every profession. Look, sometimes you as a scientist can go into your lab, do whatever you think is the best. It is peer reviewed, and sometimes it is shut down. We have recent issues when it came to this COVID, thing. People were coming out with various medications, and at the end of the day, a lot were shut down. It started from chloroquine, from whatever. Let's put our ego aside. You understand? The issue is about ego. People think that when they are criticized, people are, at them. No, let's allow criticism, especially at fora like what we have now.
Okay.
Otherwise, next time, you scare people off. People will not, have the courage to come out and criticize. You understand?
Okay, so I guess now the process continues after that letter that I read to you.
Yeah.
Dr. Ayini has also responded. It's an 11-page piece.
Yeah.
You can log on to myjawline.com and read all 11 pages of his response. We will see where this takes us. This is part of an investigation, so we will be following through to see how it ends.